Welcome to A Spiritual Moment. And today we have our featured guest, David Thornton from Nashville, Tennessee. And David, I see you here on Psychology Today, for those of you who might want to look him up, that he has a Doctor of Ministry and he is a licensed clinical pastoral therapist. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much. It's great to see you, Carol. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
thank you. So tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit more. Before we started recording, we were talking about the difference between pastoral counseling and your license, but just talk a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I am a linguist, a musician. I have been a pastor, a high school and university teacher. I've been a grocer, a gas line worker. I've I come to this work with a rich and varied background. So I've been where a lot of people are who come to see me. Um, I am also a forager. I read widely and draw on different traditions. I grew up Southern Baptist. I went to the last 4 years of my high school, or last 2 years of my high school, were in a largely Jewish high school, and that was life-changing and life-saving in many ways.
Hmm.
I spent a lot of time in the Catholic Church, in the Presbyterian Church, in the Episcopal Church. Um, so I have a rich and varied background.
Yeah, yeah, I certainly do. And, I hear hints of your connection with the spiritual aspect of what it means to be a human being. Can you talk a little bit about how you incorporate spirituality from the client in what you do? Why is that important? And anything else you want to share about that part of your work?
Sure. I have a wide range of clients. I've seen mainstream Christians. I've had Jews and Buddhists, one or two Wiccans, um, Hindu, uh, and within the, let's call it mainstream faith traditions, there are the people who come in looking for God in the clothing they are familiar with, and those who come in running from the God in the clothing they're familiar with,
Mm,
running angrily. Uh,
mm,
and so spirituality, to me, the saying that's often used, religion is for those who are afraid of hell, spirituality is for those who've been there. To listen with a spiritual ear to the story of the client as they're coming in and to engage with the story, to enter into the story, is to listen for the heart sigh, the cry of the heart that's longing for reconnection with themselves, with God, sometimes with their faith tradition, sometimes with a richer variation on their faith tradition. So
mhm, mhm.
to me, spirituality is being present,
Mm,
present to
being
them.
present. And it sounds like you've worked with people who have found spirituality both helpful and healing as well as harmful and punitive.
A fair chunk of my work is addresses spiritual abuse and healing,
Mm,
because I have had a lot myself. I
mm,
that's what brought me to this work is being chewed up and spat out by by spiritually abusive situations and people.
mm,
So
mm,
I am acutely aware of what can happen and receptive to people's stories. I believe them when they say they've been hurt. Some on the mission field, some here at home, some in their own uh, idiosyncratic searching and pursuits.
mhm, mhm.
Right. So there's a
Yeah.
difference between religious trauma and spiritual abuse. Religious trauma is what um, many of us have experienced in traditions that depict God as wrathful, vengeful, mercurial, unpredictable, uh,
Mhm, mhm,
cruel, mean, distant. But
mhm,
that's just the story. Spiritual abuse requires an abuser, I think, requires that there be someones who are using that story to manipulate and control. And
Mhm.
so to sit with people like my first therapist sat with me, uh, calmly, quietly, gently, um, with curiosity and compassion
Mhm.
to let me come out of my cave. I want to
Mhm.
help people come out of theirs.
Well, and the just a little bit that I of interaction I've had with you, it just you exude empathy, you exude compassion, you exude curiosity. And so I'm guessing that's part of what draws people to you. What drew you to this work? You said that you had difficulty and that you had a really good counselor. Anything else you want to, I mean, I don't just share whatever you feel is comfortable.
Thank you. Um, uh, let's dive in. I was in a cult for 4 years in California, a mainstream Christian appearing cult led by a self-appointed prophet who had a remarkable ability to read people's motivations and therefore their minds.
Oh my goodness.
But after 4 years of being told that God will kill me and that I was poison and um, that one of the straws that broke my back was when she hissed across a counter that she hated men. I thought, what else have I have, there is nothing left.
Wow. I had
So,
no idea.
yeah,
Wow.
how would you
Thank
know? I
you for
don't have a
sharing that. Oh
Bible.
my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that. That the fact that you were able to survive that.
It was a close call. And that's what drew me to this work. I had found refuge in the Catholic Church for a few years and spoke to a priest at a retreat center and poured out what I could in my stammering way. And he suggested that I go meet with a nun. I went to meet with a nun. This is a precious story. An old nun named Sister Thomas Bernard at Loyola Marymount in Los Angeles. And we met in a little room in two folding chairs. And to this woman I had not met, I poured out my soul.
Mm.
She sat in silence. And when I had stopped, she looked at me with her penetrating, unblinking eyes and said, "Do you know what your problem is?" And I thought, here it is. Here comes the voice of God with the axe to cut my life off. I am going to hell. I'm in hell.
Mhm.
She said, "Your problem is you have no idea how holy you are."
Oh, thank God.
And I sobbed.
Oh.
I snot sobbed for a while.
Hmm.
Um, then she gave me a list of people she'd suggest as spiritual directors, people she'd suggest as psychotherapists, and there was one name on both of them in common. And so I went to see James Finley. So he was my first therapist, and I was one of his first clients.
Wow. What a story. What a story. And look at that hope and the optimism and the impact of one person.
One person in a community. Finley was a monk under Thomas Merton. So Finley carried with him the the echoes of his 6 years with Merton, and Merton carried with him, and Finley also carried with him uh, 1,000 years of Christian mystics, deeply woven into the fabric of their spiritual DNA, into their words, into their memory, into their hearts and minds.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the impact of one person is almost never the impact of one person. It's
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, true. Yeah. It also carries me back to what you said just at the beginning of this short conversation about presence,
yeah,
that she just listened to you.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you hearken back to that when you're there for someone else? I'm guessing that's got to be
Almost
part of
every
what you
day,
do.
almost,
Really?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was liberating. It was liberating.
Hmm. Hmm.
What I didn't know, and this is possibly an aside, but I worked with Jim for about a year, and then I went on with my life. I sought some career counseling, and it was suggested to me that I go to Fuller Seminary,
Mm.
and School of Psychology, that that was my tribe. And perhaps what I would really be interested in was church work and psychotherapy. This was great. So off I go. I enroll. I do well. I'm in this program. It wasn't until a few years ago that I learned that Jim Finley had been at Fuller just before my working with him. That's where he had gone for his psychological training. So
Really?
didn't choose it for that reason, but we had some of the same teachers.
Wow. Yeah, it just almost feels like kismet.
It does. It
Yeah.
does.
Or whatever word you want to use that
Whatever
would
word,
be
synchronicity.
synchronous, serendipity.
Yes.
There's all kinds of words there. Yeah. No, I just am so, I value this time so much, David, that you're willing to share so much in such a short amount of time. I, we're pressured for time. We're going to have to schedule to meet and talk some of these things through much more deep depth and richness. And you've just, what's come to my mind just in this short amount of time is, my training was that interaction between two people, especially in pastoral psychotherapy, is sacred space.
Yeah,
Does that resonate for you?
completely. Completely. Ronald McDonald is an LCPT here in Tennessee. He lives in Memphis, is a professor at Memphis Theological Seminary, is running DMin program there. He said something that will always stay with me. I was asked at a conference by the speaker to the room, how do we bring God into the room with our clients? Without missing a beat, he said, I give the client the floor.
Mm. Mm.
That's a holy response, a
Yeah.
recognition of the holy space when two people come together.
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
see in the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't think of a better way to end this short interaction.
Lovely.
David Thornton, thank you so much. I hope that we get to do this again,
Me too.
and we will stop right there.
Cheers.